Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geostrategic Pulse. Thank you so much for watching or listening to the podcast. What if one of the most important players in the Iran conflict isn't firing a single missile? A growing debate suggests China's role may extend far beyond diplomacy, potentially helping Iran improve missile accuracy while providing the economic lifeline that keeps the regime in the fight. But how much of this is backed by evidence, and what does it mean for the United States, Israel, and global security? In the next few minutes, we'll break down the claims, examine the available reporting, and separate facts from analysis to understand what's really happening behind the headlines. Before we begin, please hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. It really helps us bring you more in-depth geopolitical analysis. And now it's your turn. Do you believe China is becoming the most influential outside power in the Iran conflict, or is its role being overstated? There are strong arguments on both sides, so share your perspective in the comments. We read them all, and the best insights often shape future discussions. Let's get started.
Yeah, and I think to really get started on this, we need to look at the physical reality on the ground right now.
Right, like the actual military hardware rolling into Tehran, because when we look at, the guidance packages highlighted in recent analysis, like the latest updates from retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Chuck DeVore, it's just a massive leap.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about a leap from unguided ballistics straight into precision strike capabilities.
Yeah.
And that kind of capability relies heavily on advanced navigational systems and, well, satellite architecture.
Which completely shifts the balance of power, right?
Oh, absolutely. We aren't just talking about giving a military more explosives or, longer range rockets. The latest information points to China supplying the kind of satellite support that fundamentally changes a missile's CEP.
The circular error probable, right?
Right, exactly. In plain terms, it shrinks the target radius from kilometers.
Down to just meters?
Down to meters, yes.
Back.
It's a game changer.
It's basically, it's the difference between throwing a dart in a pitch black room versus suddenly having a laser-guided targeting system.
That's a great way to put it.
Because, the explosive payload on the missile doesn't actually have to change, but the threat level just skyrockets because they can guarantee a hit on a specific high-value target.
Exactly. But there's a second layer to this technology that is arguably even more dangerous.
Really? More dangerous than the precision.
Yeah, because it's not just about finding the target. It's about actually surviving the journey there. The recent updates highlight that this specific tech gives Iranian weapons a much greater resilience against electronic warfare.
Ah, okay. Surviving the air defenses.
Right. Modern air defense systems, they don't always rely on physical interceptors. They often try to jam or spoof the incoming missile's navigation.
Basically tricking it into flying off course.
Exactly. But if you integrate something like, say, China's Beidou satellite network into these missiles, they become highly resistant to that jamming.
Oh, wow. So the defense systems are basically shouting confusing directions at the missile, but the new satellite link allows it to just ignore the noise and stay locked on.
Precisely. And if we pull back and look at the broader geostrategic play here, I mean, Beijing's methodology is incredibly sophisticated. They aren't putting boots on the ground.
Right, no direct involvement.
Right. They aren't flying the planes. They certainly aren't launching the missiles. Instead, they're acting as an enabling power.
Projecting power without the fingerprints of direct attribution.
Exactly. By quietly amplifying the military capability of a proxy, they tie up their geopolitical rivals, specifically the U.S. and its allies in the region, without ever engaging in direct conventional warfare.
It's a calculated strategy, yeah.
Extremely low risk, high reward.
But this brings up a glaring logistical issue for me. I'm sort of stuck on the math here.
How so?
Well, upgrading missile technology, integrating advanced satellite navigation, hardening all these systems against electronic warfare, none of that is cheap.
No, it's astronomically expensive.
Right. And we are talking about an Iranian regime that is seemingly buckling under intense international sanctions. So how are they affording this top-tier hardware? Are the sanctions just failing?
Well, it's not necessarily that the sanctions are failing on paper. It's rather that a massive systemic loophole has been engineered. I mean, sanctions only work when they successfully isolate a nation from global capital.
Sure.
But the latest reporting, including some really extensive tracking by organizations like the BBC, it shows Beijing buying massive fleets of Iranian oil tankers.
And maintaining deep trade ties, yeah.
Right. They are deeply embedded in the conflict through these oil purchases.
So wait, how does that actually bypass the financial dragnet, though? Because Western sanctions are designed to systematically starve a military apparatus of hard currency. Are they just moving the money through untraceable channels, or what?
Basically, yes. They're using what's commonly referred to as the dark fleet.
The dark fleet.
Yeah. These are oil tankers that just turn off their AIS transponders. They go completely dark on maritime radar.
Wow, just vanishing off the map.
Essentially, yeah. And then they perform ship-to-ship transfers of Iranian crude oil out in the middle of the ocean. It effectively launders the origin of the oil before it ever reaches Chinese ports.
So if we look at this from a financial perspective, China isn't just a trading partner. Are they acting as a pressure release valve for the sanctions meant to stop Iran's military?
Yes, it functions as an economic bypass valve. That is the most accurate way to describe it.
It prevents immediate strangulation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By purchasing these massive quantities of oil, and often at a steep discount, which obviously benefits China, Beijing provides the exact financial lifeline Tehran requires.
Wow.
It gives them the liquidity to sustain their operations, fund proxy networks, and literally keep the lights on despite all that international pressure.
Okay, so if I'm listening to this and mapping it out in my head, Iran has this massive technological leap via satellite integration, and they have this massive economic bypass valve funded by a global superpower. So the logical assumption is that this conflict will just drag out into an endless grinding stalemate. I mean, they have the tech and the cash to fight forever. But the recent analysis pushes back on that completely, doesn't it?
It pushes back hard, yeah. The latest analysis notes that despite this extensive external support, the regime is actually under severe mounting pressure.
Internal pressure.
Internal and regional. We're seeing physical evidence of this pressure manifesting right now. For example, look at the multinational naval efforts. They are actively constraining Iranian movements and projecting overwhelming force in the Strait of Hormuz.
Which is arguably the most critical global choke point for energy markets.
Exactly.
And we're also seeing some very telling defensive posturing, right? Like recent updates detailed Iranian nuclear assets being moved deep underground.
Into fortified facilities, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a massive geostrategic tell. You do not bury your most valuable strategic assets deep inside a mountain unless you believe your conventional deterrent is failing.
And that a direct strike is imminent.
Right. It is an acknowledgement of acute vulnerability.
Wait, let's unpack this for the listener. If Tehran has China acting as their economic and technological shield, why does the latest analysis point toward a total political collapse rather than a long, drawn-out stalemate?
Because it's the core geostrategic paradox of this entire situation. External support can only bandage internal fragility up to a point.
Okay, so it has limits.
Absolutely. You can possess the best satellite navigation for your ballistic missiles, and you can have a steady stream of dark fleet oil revenue bypassing global markets. But if the foundational structure of your state is rotting...
Under the weight of regional isolation and unrest?
Yes. Isolation, domestic unrest, massive military overextension. If all that is happening, a collapse becomes the most probable outcome.
So the external hardware doesn't fix the internal structural damage at all.
Exactly. And by backing Tehran, Beijing inadvertently accelerates this. Well, they expand the conflict from a localized regional war into a broader strategic competition extending way beyond the Middle East. It traps the U.S. in wider military and geopolitical consequences with global great power rivalries, sure.
Right.
But crucially, it also places Iran directly in the crosshairs of a global conflict it cannot independently survive.
Oh, I see. They become a proxy battleground for larger superpower.
Precisely. And historically, when a fragile state becomes the testing ground for great power competition, it just accelerates internal political collapse. The pressure from both inside and outside the borders simply becomes too much for the regime's infrastructure to handle.
Which means as you watch these events unfold, you really have to look past the physical battlefield. You can't just count the missiles or track the ships on a map.
No, you can't.
You have to look at the invisible structural infrastructure holding these actors up. And I think that leaves us with one final crucial question to consider today. If Iran's military and economy are now structurally dependent on Beijing's support, what happens to the regime overnight if China suddenly decides the geopolitical cost of backing Tehran outweighs the benefits of cheap oil?
It's a terrifying thought for Tehran. It's a structural vulnerability that could flip the entire geopolitical board in an instant. The moment that economic bypass valve is shut off, the reality of the sanctions hits all at once.
Wow, a fascinating dynamic to watch in the coming months. Well, thank you everyone so much for listening or watching today. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please make sure to listen to the other podcasts on our channel for more deep dives into the forces shaping our world. Until next time.